Hey, I'm Geeky Pastimes, and in today's video I'm going to give you my thoughts, my kind of review of the Black Ops Cold War beta and everything that we got to play in it. If you like the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the video! So this is the third time we've had a chance to play Black Ops Cold War after the PlayStation exclusive alpha, then the PlayStation beta, and now the cross-platform beta. So we've been able to put quite a lot of hours into it, and I've been playing all the way through. It's, you know, if you follow me on Twitter or anything, you won't be surprised to hear that I've absolutely loved every single part of it. I've always been able to get to max level. I've played every single game mode. I've played with every single weapon, I think. I've tried all of them now, on every map and everything like that. And I've had an absolute blast. Like, I've absolutely loved everything about it so far. I get that some people, you know, don't like some of the changes, but I think a lot of that comes down to the difference between Black Ops and Modern Warfare. Like, I've always preferred Treyarch's games. Like, I've always had more fun with them. So I think, you know, probably I'm a little bit, not biased is the wrong word, but I think, like, this is a game that I was expecting to enjoy quite a lot, and it's not let me down at all. So in this, what I wanted to do was talk through all of the different features, you know, talk through the maps, talk through some of the different modes that there are in this, talk about some of the mechanics and the features that I've heard people complaining about, or I've, you know, got a lot of praise for, and some of the things like that. So we'll try and cover as much as possible in this video. So to start off with, I wanted to talk about the maps, because I think that's one of the things that kind of instantly feels newer and feels different. You know, as soon as you drop into this, these are maps that we haven't seen before. We haven't got any remakes or anything like that. These are all brand new, and I absolutely love all of them. I've heard people saying, you know, there's certain maps that they don't like. You know, some people don't like Miami, especially in the alpha and the first beta. People didn't like it. Some people aren't big fans of Cartel. I would say there isn't a map in this that I don't enjoy playing on. I've ranked them from like my least favourite to my most favourite, but still my least favourite, I still like it a lot more than some of like the worst maps from other Call of Duty games. So I really am happy with the map design so far. But going through them one by one, my least favourite one is probably Armada. I don't really like the combined arms mode that much, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But Armada, for me, it just seems like the matches get very repetitive on that map. Like, you end up sort of spawning, going across the zip line, having a little fight in the middle, dying, and then doing the same thing again and again. Obviously, there are options, and I think, you know, the game modes lend themselves well to that. That if you want to get the middle objective, you can like swim under the ships if you want. You can get on a jet ski and go around. You can get on the boats and go around. But I feel like in nearly all of the games I've played, we've ended up with loads and loads of snipers sitting on the spawn boats, trying to pick off everyone who comes anywhere near them. And that ends up with the map becoming one of these where there's kind of two distinct sides to it, and then a place for close quarters combat in the middle. And there's very little movement across a match. And because combined arms tends to go on for so long, it means that, like, matches seem to get a little bit stale on Armada. Like, I tend to get a little bit bored before the match is over. And there's not a huge amount they can do about that. Like, I think it's good to have some of these bigger maps. It's good to have this game mode for people who like it. It's just probably not for me. I do like the sort of different options of getting around that submarine in the middle. I think that's really interesting. That's really cool. I like being able to swim underwater. It's a really good way to show off the swimming mechanics, obviously, which we don't really get much of in other maps. Like, I know there is water on places like Miami, but you don't really get to do as much swimming in them. But Armada's a good way to show us kind of how swimming works and everything like that. I just don't think it's a map that I would choose very often. Now, my next map, and this is where I start getting to maps that I do actually really like, but this is my next least favourite map, is Miami. Now, Miami, I think the game modes are the problem. If you're playing on an objective mode, Miami is absolutely brilliant. I think it's like super good fun. I think there's a lot of really cool little locations in it. Like, the alleyway is completely different from being near the visitor center and the beach, and all of those crash cars in the middle of the street. You know, you've got the balcony looking over them. You've got the actual hotel. The different rooms in the hotel are really cool to fight around. But when you're playing in Team Deathmatch or Kill Confirmed, it does feel a little bit empty. Like, it does feel like it's slightly too big for that number of players. And I think that, like, they could easily solve that by just putting it in playlists more where there's objective modes, or maybe even by opening it up as like a 10v10 map or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely, I think it looks awesome. Like, it's one of the best looking maps. It just feels a little bit too big for those kind of 6v6 deathmatch games. You can end up with not finding anyone for a long while. You know, you can rotate around the map, and by the time you get to the other side of the map, the spawns are flipped and you haven't actually seen anyone, which can get a little bit annoying at times. But I do love the sort of detail in that map, and that's one thing that you see in a lot of these different maps if you're looking at them closely, like I do when I'm looking for Easter eggs and stuff. That the Miami map is linked to the other maps, you know, it's linked to Cartel. It's got things to do with Pawn Takes Pawn. We've been in there to look at the stuff in the visitor center. There's kind of a story between the sort of what was going on in the Paramore and people staying in the hotel and then going over to that restaurant. And all of that kind of lit up through Pawn Takes Pawn. It kind of takes you through some lore behind it, and I think it makes all of the locations slightly more interesting. And when you see objects hidden around, and this is something you see on a lot of the maps, it makes them all like a little bit more interesting. It makes them a little bit more immersive. And I really, really like that. And obviously I just love the lighting of it. It just looks so cool, especially when you've got airstrikes and things like that going off. It looks awesome. I couldn't work out how to enable ray tracing in the beta. I'm not sure if it was working or not. It just didn't appear as an option in graphics settings. But I imagine ray tracing is going to look absolutely amazing on that. So I'm really looking forward to being able to play it at launch. The next map, again, this is one of these maps that, like, I don't think it's a bad map as such. I just think it's not for me. Is Crossroads. Again, not a big fan of combined arms. I do love Crossroads on VIP Escort. I think it's really interesting. Again, you've got lots of, very different areas to fight in. I think my biggest problem with Crossroads is that there's so much open space that it ends up being a brilliant place for snipers, and I'm not very good at sniping. So again, it's just one that doesn't fit with my playstyle. I do like how many different areas there are on Crossroads, and I think there's still quite a lot that a lot of people haven't really seen, like all the bunkers at the back that you can't get into, but there's these cool big bunker doors. The rope bridge, I know loads of times in stream I've gone over that and had loads of people saying like, what, I didn't know you could go over that rope bridge. The whole crash train at the top of the map, I think it looks really cool, and I think that there's it's interesting having those different environments. I just think there needs to be a little bit more cover, not just on the ice lake. I like the idea that there's one area that's super open, but that area kind of on the other side from near where the cliffs are, sort of on the other side away from the crash train, I think they could do with being a little bit more cover on there maybe. Whether it's just a few more trees or whether the snow needs to be a bit deeper so you can there's some snowbanks. But I would quite like it if there was more ways to move across the map without being seen by snipers. That would be pretty cool. Now the next map, and now we're getting into ones that I really think are brilliant, and some of the better maps that they've made in Call of Duty, is Cartel. Now I know some people have had problems with Cartel. I think a lot of the problems that come from the idea that you can't actually see players very well sometimes in this game, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the idea of being a bit tactical and trying to hide a little bit is probably an interesting way of making you able to move around the map in a different way. And Cartel's probably the worst for that because there's so many routes through the map and there's all of those bushes in the middle that you can hide in completely. It can be a right pain to find people in this sometimes, but that makes it really interesting to me. And because I love the objective mode so much, I think Cartel's really, really interesting because even though it doesn't feel that big, it takes quite a long time to get across the map, and so you've got a lot of big choices about different routes to go through. And obviously there's still it feels like there's the 3 lanes, so you've got the kind of hangar route and then you've got the field sort of thing in the middle and the river on the right. They're actually sort of within the fields in the middle, there's lots of different routes through that. You can go down through the lower bit where the tower is, or you can go through the higher bit. You can just cut across the front of the hangar door but risk getting shot by people in the hangar. It's really interesting, and I think there's a lot of kind of options in that map, which I really, really enjoy. And I've had a lot of really fun games on there. Plus, there's motorbikes on there in some of the modes, which is really cool. The next one, and one of the better maps, I think lots of people really like this, is Satellite. I think Satellite is really interesting because it's kind of different for Call of Duty. It's very, very bright. It's very, very open. But there's enough cover, especially with the sand dunes. I think the sand dunes are really interesting. That actually you can walk, even though it feels very open, you can get quite far through the sand dunes without being seen by anyone else on the map. And I think that's really interesting. Obviously, the Satellite at the top has space for lots of really interesting fights, and you've got there's quite a lot of verticality in that, which you don't get in a lot of the other maps that we've played so far. Being able to fight up on that satellite and then look down into those kind of canyons below you is really cool. And it's a real sort of power position. If you can control a satellite, it feels like you can control a lot of games. But if you control the satellite, you can't actually see the sand dunes that well. And that means that people can kind of still find ways to get around you, still find ways to flank you. So it's a very kind of open map in terms of strategy. I think it's a really open map in terms of it's very hard to get locked down in one position on there. And I really like it. And again, it looks really cool. There's maybe a little bit less detail. There seems to be less kind of like little hidden objects and things like that. Which is a little bit of a shame, but other than that, I think it's really, really cool. There's also quite a cool heat haze effect. I'm not sure if it's just on PC. I'm a little bit worried it'll be one of those things that you kind of have to turn off somehow to have a sort of tactical advantage over people. But I think it looks really cool, like seeing the heat off the sand is really nice. Now the next map is Moscow. This is my favourite map in the beta so far. Like, I've absolutely loved Moscow. I think it's really cool, like all the different buildings. It's very easy to shout them out. It's very easy to talk about the different areas. There's some really cool little features like that little window that you can slide through and sometimes take people by surprise. You've got those two windows that face each other near the statue where you sort of have these little sniping battles. The main room is really cool and it's open to the air, so you can get airstrikes and stuff in there, but there's like loads of different bits of cover. I just think it's a really cool map. There's loads of cool different like ways to approach it. Again, there's loads of options for how you get around and how you cut across between the different routes. It's also pretty big. Like, somehow it doesn't feel too big when you're playing team deathmatch, but when you're just exploring, like when I'm looking for Easter egg stuff, there's loads of stuff hidden, and there's loads of areas that I just didn't see before when I was playing it normally. So I think that's that makes it interesting. It makes objective modes, again, a little bit more interesting, because there's lots of different areas. So moving on to talk about the modes. The sort of free modes in the sort of quick playlist that we've had all the time, I think are kind of exactly what you'd expect. Deathmatch, Kill Confirmed, and Domination are exactly what you'd expect. I think the maps are maybe a little bit big for some of them. You know, I feel like maybe they could have upped the player count a tiny bit, but they're still lots of fun. They're not my favourites. I tend to prefer the objective modes, but I've had loads of fun playing on them. And you can have some like really, really close games. It doesn't feel like anyone's got a massive advantage depending on which side they start in or anything like that. I think all of that is kind of standard COD. It's like, it's another year of COD. It's a lot of fun. It's absolutely fine. The other modes are much more interesting. So Control's one of the ones that we got added sort of towards the end of the beta. So far, I've not been as keen on it. I think that a big part of that is because I've lost a load of matches of Control. I'd probably like it a lot more if I'd won. It is interesting in that the structure of it means that you can kind of learn what the enemy team's like and then get better at sort of like working out, okay, should we go for A or B first and how we do it? I just feel like Control's one of the only modes where I feel like sometimes we've just been shut out. Sometimes like you play the first round and you think, okay, yeah, this isn't working very well, we're getting absolutely destroyed, and then you've got to sort of go through the motions to finish off all the rest of the maps. At least there's only 3 rounds if the other team's doing really well, but it can be a little bit disheartening, and it feels like it's harder to sort of claw your way back in Control. It's happened occasionally, and I like the lives mechanic. I think that gives you an opportunity to play a bit more defensively, but as an attacking team especially, you just don't have very much time at all, so you've kind of got to keep on pushing, and that makes it quite difficult. So Control hasn't been a favourite of mine, but that's not to say it's terrible. The next mode that I wanted to talk about is Hardpoint. Hardpoint's always been amazing. Like, I've always loved Hardpoint, and I think one of the best things about Hardpoint is that it really shows off the maps. Like, where they choose to put the hardpoints, that suddenly turns that area into almost like a mini map where you find new positions, you find new sight lines, and that's really cool. And they've done a really good job. All of the maps in Hardpoint work really well. All of the objectives are really fun. I haven't seen one of them that I think is kind of bad or like less fun than the others. I think Hardpoint's awesome, and it's going to be really cool to see that in things like CDL, see like pro players playing on it, because they always sort of find interesting ways to hold those objectives I hadn't thought of. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that. VIP Escort is probably the mode that I've spent the most time in. I absolutely love it, and I've understood some people don't like it because they don't have other people to play with. You know, if you don't have a team of 6, VIP Escort can be super frustrating. But for anyone who doesn't know what it is, because it's one of the new modes, basically there's an attacking and defending team. The attacking team have a VIP, so one player on the team randomly turns into the VIP at the beginning of each round. That person has to try and get to one of 2 helicopters and then hold interact on it and extract. They only have a pistol and smoke grenades and a UAV and a sort of microphone, a field mic. So they're a little bit more sort of fragile. They can't fight as well as some of the others can, as everyone else on the team. So as a team, you've got to try and get them to one of those things, or you can kill the whole other enemy team. And you have quite a long time to do it, to be honest. Like, there's plenty of times where we've won by sort of attacking one objective, then deciding to back off and go back to the other one, and then deciding that didn't work and going back to the original one, and still having time to extract. So that works really well. The defending team just have to kill the VIP. If they kill the VIP, they win. Or if the time runs out, they win. So it turns into this like really cool mode where you've got a lot of strategy, a lot of sort of communication about how you're going to set up, how you're going to split your team. If someone spots the VIP, everyone needs to rush over to try and sort of stop them. Try and keep track of them is really hard. You can like res people in it. So you have that kind of risk-reward decision about, do you res people, do you go for the res, or do you sort of like keep on trying to shoot the VIP? Because people can get downed, even the VIP can get downed. You've got that whole thing of like, if you down a VIP, do you just go for it to try and get that last shot off on them? Or do you play a bit defensively to save yourself to carry on the fight? And it's just led to like all of these really cool moments, all of these really cool stories. I've had so much fun with it. Like, we did win a ton of games of VIP. I think because for me, it's quite easy to get together 6 people who are communicating. If you're playing with people who aren't communicating, I think it would be a nightmare. If you want to go into the VIP mode, I strongly suggest you get on a Discord. Like, get on my Discord if you want, and try to get a group together to play with you. Because with a group, it's absolutely awesome. Like, I really, really love it. Again, it's another one where I can't wait to see some pro players playing on it. Now, so the other modes are sort of the bigger modes. So Combined Arms, I've already talked about a little bit. I'm not a massive fan of Combined Arms just because the fights seem to go on for a very long time. You've got obviously a much bigger team. And because the parties are only limited to 6, you can't fill that team up with people who you can communicate with. So there's a lot less strategy going on. There's a lot less sort of like working stuff out. I feel like when you're playing that, it's just kind of almost grinding against something. Like, maybe your team will win, maybe you'll lose. It doesn't feel like you have a massive influence either way. So I've not particularly enjoyed that. I think it'll probably be a good place, for people to rank up weapons and things like that, and do challenges. A bit like how Ground War was, and I never really got on with Ground War either, so I think it's a similar thing where it's just not for me. Fireteam, on the other hand, this is another one of the newer ones that we've just had this weekend, and Fireteam's awesome. Like, Fireteam is something completely new, whereas like VIP Escort is kind of a twist on things like Search and Destroy. Fireteam feels like something properly new, and it's amazing. Obviously, as soon as you play it, it's like, this feels like Warzone, because you're like jumping out of a plane, you've got armor, there's doors in it. It's made me really think that those original rumors were wrong, and that actually we are getting Warzone in this engine, which I really hope for, because it's awesome, and like the maps in it seem really cool. But Fireteam, for anyone who doesn't know, you've got 10 different teams of 4 players. 5 objectives spawn on these quite big maps that seem to have something procedural going on. Like, they seem to have locations in different places sometimes, which is really cool. And yeah, so you go into these maps, there's 5 different objectives, and you can go around and loot uranium from crates, and you can also get Scorestreaks and armor and things from them. And then you cash them in at these sort of bombs, these dirty bombs. Once you've filled up one with 20 bits of uranium, you can activate it. If you get more of your team around it, then you activate it quicker, and you get points for either killing enemies, depositing uranium, or setting off these bombs. Once you've set off the bomb, that area gets irradiated for a while, so if people go in it, they'll start getting weaker. There's many different things going on. You've also got like your team drops in on you, you can respawn on people, sort of in a way almost like Battlefield, where you can't respawn on someone if they're fighting, but as long as they're not, you can like come back in. You can choose whether you fly in, or if they're not fighting and they're up, you can actually just spawn next to them. It's really cool. Like, there's loads of vehicles in it. There's loads of stuff going on at any one time. Because there's 10 teams, there's like a lot of competition in it. It's just something that I've never played a game that really felt much like that. It almost feels a bit more like MAG or something to me, for people who remember that, or like PlanetSide or something. I don't know why. It's just sort of having all of these different objectives, all of these different things to be doing. It never lets up. You never really get many quiet moments in it, but in a fun way. And if you've got a team who are communicating well, and you're moving around and you know how to get points, it's really, really competitive, and I really, really enjoy it. That's really awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing what that mode is. Just Fireteam Dirty Bomb, so I'm looking forward to seeing what else we get for Fireteam, like what other types of modes they use that with. I really do hope that we get Warzone kind of with some of those things to do with those maps maybe, or just this engine, because that would be awesome and make it feel a bit more fresh. So moving away from the modes, I want to talk about some of the things that maybe some people have disliked a little bit, or some things that have been maybe a bit more controversial. So one of them is the score streak system. Now, when we heard about this, I think there was a lot of negativity about it, but when people have been playing, it's pretty good. Basically, the way it works is you need points in order to get score streaks, like kill streaks. And to get those points, you really do still need to get kill streaks, because that gives you a multiplier and you get them much quicker. If you just get one kill every death, you're not going to earn many of the big ones in a single match. Like, you probably won't even get up to like artillery, let alone an attack helicopter. But if you're getting, double or triple kills, then you're likely to get something like artillery. And if you can get a few 5-kill streaks, you're probably going to get stuff like the chopper gunner. This seems to work really well. It doesn't feel like there's a million of the powerful score streaks being used, but people who are maybe a bit less good are still able to get the lower ones a lot more frequently. People are getting UAVs. At the moment, there's a bunch of UAVs, and I think that's partly because we didn't have all of the score streaks available to us, so people had less to choose from. I think over time that'll simmer down a little bit. My real issue with the whole system is more that the score streaks seem very, very fragile. They're super powerful, like Chopper Gunner is insanely powerful, but it's also really easy to shoot it down. A lot of the weapons now have these new barrels that do extra vehicle damage, like plus 200% vehicle damage or something. And with things like the snipers or the LMGs, you can absolutely burn them down in a matter of seconds. Like, you can kill attack helicopters and chopper gunners even without too much trouble before they get onto the map. So I think there needs to be some balancing done with that. I'm not really sure what to do, because you don't want the score streaks to be like unstoppable, but you also don't want to earn one, be really happy about it, and then get shot down before you even get a chance to use it. So yeah, I'm hoping they'll tweak those things as it goes on. But the actual score streak system, I think, is awesome. As someone who can fairly regularly get 5-kill streaks, but not much beyond that, I've still never had a nuke in any Call of Duty game ever, despite playing all of them. It works really well for people like me. I feel like if I get a chopper gunner in a game, it's still an accomplishment. But in every game, I'm going to get at least some score streaks. I get to use them, which is really cool. There's also, I think one of the really good sides about it is that it's much less frustrating when you die. If you're on a 9-kill score streak, then you die. You're not gutted because you've completely wasted that, and then you aren't going to get the thing that you would get at a 10-kill score streak. Instead, those points have now been banked, and then you're sort of moving towards it. It'll take you longer to get it because you died, but it doesn't mean that that time was wasted, which I think is really cool. The next one is probably the biggest, sort of most controversial thing, and that's skill-based matchmaking. I'm still of the opinion with skill-based matchmaking that it's incredibly hard to get any data on it. I'm always skeptical when anyone says skill-based matchmaking this is really strong, or skill-based matchmaking is working in this way, because I've seen people trying to test things on it and it just doesn't seem to work. I've seen people saying like, oh, well, look at this, like I had a good game and then I got put in a really hard game and then I got put in a good game after that. But that just hasn't borne out for me. We won 15 games of VIP in a row. We've had loads of good games of like domination and team deathmatch in a row, and then a few bad games in a row sometimes. It seems to be a bit all over the place. Now, this might be because I'm a pretty average player. My kill death in Call of Duty games tends to be between like 1 and 1.4. I'm not one of these pro players with like 5 kill deaths, but every game I've had in this has felt pretty close. There's been like 1 or 2 where we've been outclassed, especially in control. But I feel like the majority of the games, I haven't felt like we're absolutely destroying the enemy team, and I haven't felt like we're being absolutely destroyed either. And that's good for me. I enjoy it being competitive. I enjoy having to put a bit of effort in to win. And I enjoy it not feeling like I'm getting absolutely demolished. And it's been really cool. Like, it's been really, really good. And I have to say, all the people that I've played with have kind of seemed to have felt the same. I haven't been playing with people who have been like, oh my god, we're getting put in terrible lobbies. It always seems, like, yeah, these lobbies are fair. We're like having to work hard to win, and it's good. I've never really understood that whole idea of like, oh, well, I want to be able to win without having to try really hard. And it's like, well, if you try less hard, you're going to do less well. Surely that's just how that works. Like, I just don't understand what they want. It's like, if you try harder, you will win more. And if you try less hard, you will win less. That's just how it is. And I don't agree with when people have said, oh, well, you have to try your very hardest to win any games. I've been playing games like a lot. When we went on that 15 kill streak, I was using the M16. I hate burst weapons. I've never liked them. I wasn't getting on with it at all. But we were still winning games. It wasn't like, oh, because I tried to use a weapon that wasn't sort of the best weapon for me. I was doing really, like, it was making it impossible to win. I think there's a lot of people moaning about this. I think like this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think a lot of people use it as a clutch, like, that they, or crutch, sorry, that they kind of, you move to a new Call of Duty, things are a bit different. You're probably going to be worse at this than you were at the last one because you've had, hundreds of hours of practice at the last one. You're probably going to do a bit worse, and people like to blame that on something that's not them. That's always been the thing with Call of Duty. People always complain about something being, the excuse for why they're losing, whether it's lag or server tick rate, or whether it's, connections, or whether it's the matchmaking, or whether it's, that the enemy team are all tryhards and sweats, or their team are all bots. And it's like, maybe just everyone who you're playing with is trying to win like you are. And sometimes you have good games and sometimes you have bad games. I think that's the way to look at it. I find it really interesting that I sort of come from a sort of PC gaming history, at least, of playing a lot of things like StarCraft and Heroes of the Storm. And in those games, people don't blame anything other than themselves, or sometimes their teammates, admittedly, in MOBAs. But I think like StarCraft's probably a better example than Heroes of the Storm, where people just accept that if they get beaten, it's because the other team were better, or the other player was better. I used to play a lot of 2v2, so I used to play a lot of teams. And it's kind of, I feel that's a much healthier thing. People, when you're seeing advice on how to get better in those games, people are always saying, oh yeah, well, you need to learn from your mistakes. Don't blame something else. Pay attention to what you did wrong. Pay attention to what you could do better next time, because you can only control what you do. Whereas in Call of Duty, it seems to be, oh, well, if you're doing badly, it must be someone else's fault. And I don't think that's a very healthy mindset to have with this. I mean, each their own, people can moan about whatever they want. But personally, I find it a lot more enjoyable when you just sort of like, you try in the game, you do as well as you can. I personally can have fun sometimes when we're losing. If I'm messing around, if we're trying silly things and we're losing, I don't care too much. If I'm trying really hard and we're winning, that's brilliant. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of all the kind of people moaning about the matchmaking, because I think it is doing a very good job. However it's working, it's doing a very good job of matching people up against people who are about as good as them, which is what it should be to me. So moving on to something that, again, is surprisingly controversial to me, and that is the graphics. I've heard some people saying that, like, oh, I don't like this engine, I hope Warzone doesn't go to it, it doesn't look as good. To me, it looks amazing. To me, like, I love the vivid colours, I love the art design. I think, like, the artists have done an incredible job, especially with the maps, but with everything, really. I'd probably say with the art design, the only thing I don't like is that a couple of the characters look a lot like the VIP in VIP Escort. I feel like they ought to have a different costume for the VIP that looks completely different from any of the characters. Give them like a high-vis jacket or something. But the maps all look incredible. I think the lighting's really, really cool. I'm looking forward to being able to work out how to get ray tracing working and stuff like that, so I can use it with my 3080. But it's just such an awesome looking game. And even on a PlayStation, it seems to run really well. The frame rate seems really solid. And, we've heard that with the next-gen consoles, we're going to be able to play at 120 frames per second. That's absolutely awesome. I've been playing on PC at 2K at 140 frames per second, and it just feels incredible to me. It looks so good. It looks better than Call of Duty ever has done. I can't wait to see what campaign looks like and what zombies looks like. Like, it's going to be awesome. I just think it's an amazing looking game, and I think I really appreciate the sort of brighter color palette. I appreciate the kind of the colors and like the neon lights in Miami, or the brightness of satellite, stuff like that. It just looks awesome, I think. And the maps all look so different to each other. Like, you could see a screenshot of any one of the maps and you could instantly know which one it is, because the color palettes are completely different. The sort of art style is slightly different for, things like Miami and Moscow look completely different because of the architecture and the objects in it, the details. I just think it looks really, really cool, and they've done a really, really good job of making everything look very sort of unique. While fitting in with the kind of atmosphere. Miami looks like what as someone that's never been to Miami, that's what I imagine Miami to look like. Moscow looks like what I imagine Moscow to look like. So I think they've done a really good job there. In terms of sound design, I do feel like the sound design was better in the alpha somehow. I feel like in the betas, both betas, it got a little bit muddy, and I'm not entirely sure why. Like, it could be something that I've changed with my setup, but I've not been able to get it to sound like quite as bright as it did in the alpha. I think the actual sounds are really cool, like especially the Scorestreaks. Like, the napalm sounds amazing, but there's something weirdly sort of constantly bassy that makes the sound a little bit odd to me. I think it's really cool how you can hear footsteps very clearly. I think the positional audio is really good. Like, I can always tell exactly where people are, or exactly where UAVs are. Like, whatever they've done with it, it's amazing how accurately you can work out where UAV is just based on sound. But there's something with like the explosions and the gunfire where everything kind of runs into each other, and I find it kind of hard to tell like different guns apart and things like that, which is a little bit of a shame. And it just sort of sounds a bit unpleasant when there's lots of sort of rumbling, muddy sounds. But like I said, the actual sounds themselves are really cool individually, but there's something to do with the balances that I don't think sound quite right. Hopefully they'll tweak that by launch and we'll get more options. I think we only had 3 options for like the mixes. And I'd like something maybe like an equalizer where we could choose it to be a bit like I would prefer it to be a bit brighter. I would prefer to like raise the high end a little bit more. And I think that would be really cool. I know there is an option to raise the high end, but for me at least I can't tell any difference between the 3 sound mixes they give us. I'm not sure if they're not working, but they don't seem to be working for me. So the other big thing that a lot of people have talked about, I don't know as much about, are the weapons. Like I never really talk much about weapons in my videos because just I don't know anything about guns. Like I don't know anything about guns in real life really. And in games, I feel like I find guns I like and I tend to stick with them, but I would struggle to describe what I like about them. In this, I've definitely gravitated towards the XM4 and the Gallo shotgun. I really like both of those. The Gallo shotgun feels a bit like an Origin, but with longer range. The XM4, I know it's the Commando from Black Ops, but like it feels a lot like the Growl to me. Like I can use it in the same way as the Growl, where it works really well at a distance, but it also works really well up close. So I absolutely love both those guns. I've tried a lot of the other guns. I think I've tried all of them now. And there's things that seem a bit weird to me, like the RPD doesn't have any recoil as far as I can tell. The recoil seems a bit stronger in the newer beta, but if you put the right attachments on it, it's just crazy. That thing's a laser. It's insane. The MP5 seems incredibly powerful. Like I've been killed by that a lot of times because people can be so mobile with it and it does so much damage. But all of those things I imagine will be tweaked so much before the game launches anyway. I'm not sure how useful it is to talk about them. I do like the fact that across the betas and the alpha, when you ask people what their favourite gun is, you hear lots of different answers. And that to me sounds like they've balanced the guns really well. I think the guns suit different playstyles really well, and that's what it should be. You know, it should be that you find a gun that suits you really well. It's not necessarily the best gun in the game. It's not necessarily the meta, but it sort of complements you the way you play. And if it works like that, then that's awesome. I'm all for that. Now, in terms of like the other things like the launchers and stuff like that, I think they're all fine. This sounds stupid, but the lock-on launcher, the original launcher you get, I don't really like the reload animation because you can't really see that anything's happening with it. I'm not sure what I could do with that, even if it's just wobbling it about a little bit. But it looks a little bit strange to me. But that's a tiny little problem anyway. It doesn't really matter. So overall, I absolutely love this. You know, I've loved the beta. I've loved the time I've been playing with it. I've been playing with loads of viewers. I've been playing with friends. I've been having an absolute blast with it. And it's like, I haven't had one session where I've gone on it and not enjoyed it. You know, I've had some that were better than others for sure, but I've absolutely loved every day that I've been playing it. And I'm sort of sad it's going to be finishing now. We've got like 3 weeks, which doesn't sound like that long of a time, but it feels like a long time till we're going to get to play this again. And it's weird because then, you know, when we get to play it again, I'll be playing it on, you know, PC and Xbox Series X. I think I'm going to pick it up on both so I can play it, you know, whether I'm playing it streaming or whether I'm just playing casually. Yeah, I'm like, it feels weird that we're not going to be able to play it for such a long time. I'll have to go back to Warzone and start learning how to play that again, I guess. But I can't wait to see how like Zombies turns out. Everything we've seen of Zombies looks really cool. And obviously, loads of people have been asking me, yes, I am definitely going to be trying to get involved in Zombies from like launch night. I'll be there trying to sort of solve the Easter eggs and everything. Because I'm sort of new to Zombies, I'm not expecting to be the world's first to complete anything, but I'm really hoping we can help the others. You know, I really want to help some of those people who have helped me over time. So like Greg FPS and DK Dynamite and like Dalek and Noah and Skype and all those people. I'd really love to be able to kind of, you know, contribute something. You know, maybe if they've got a gap in their team at one point, I could hop in and help them out find something. If there's any codes they find, you know, I'll be pretty good at solving that kind of stuff, I'm sure. That sort of stuff. I'm really looking forward to just getting involved with the whole Zombies community and being able to be a part of that. It's going to be awesome. And the campaign, I can't wait to see what it looks like. I really like what we've seen of the story so far. We've seen quite a lot of the story, I think. You know, we've found out a lot about these characters. So I'm looking forward to sort of really seeing how that pans out. And obviously with Call of Duty, the set pieces are always amazing. So I can't wait to see what they do this time. The stuff we've seen in the trailer is absolutely crazy. So I can't wait to like actually play through some of that stuff. And then obviously we've got whatever they do with Warzone. At the time of recording this, we don't know what they're going to do with Warzone. The Warzone bit on the Black Ops page is still redacted. We've heard loads of different different rumours, loads of different ideas. We know stuff from Modern Warfare is going to carry on over. There were rumours that it was going to keep on using the Modern Warzone. Sorry, that's the website and the Twitter account. Modern Warfare. We were hearing rumours that they were going to keep on using the Modern Warfare engine, but I'm hoping that that's not true anymore because I just kind of like it to be a bit fresh. I'd like it to be a bit different. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with it at all, so I'm hoping over the next couple of weeks we'll find out a lot about that. And obviously, as soon as we do, I'll be tweeting about it, making videos, streaming, whatever we can, especially if we get a new bit of Porn Takes Porn for that. So, big message, big takeaway from all of this is thank you so much to Treyarch. Thank you so much to all the developers at Treyarch that have been working through lockdown and everything and managed to create such an incredible game, and managed to give us such incredible betas. It wasn't that long ago that we were hearing rumours that there wasn't going to be a multiplayer beta, that there was going to be a campaign demo or something. Obviously, if that was ever true, they turned it around. And have given us, again, I think while lots of people expected after the sort of changeovers with what was happening with Sledgehammer, that we still don't really understand exactly what happened there, people thought this game might be rushed or something, and it really doesn't feel like that. Like, this, to me, feels like this could be the best Call of Duty game we've ever had. As I said, I've always loved the Black Ops games. Like, they've always been my favourite ones. So I'm just unbelievably excited about what we're going to see with this. So thank you very much for listening to this. This is a longer video than I usually do. I'm going to have to get loads and loads of footage to put in while you're listening to me talk through this. If you've got this far, thank you so much for listening to it all. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. Go check me out on Twitch. I'm Geeky Pastimes there. Go check me out on Twitter. I'm Geeky Pastimes there as well. I'm Geeky Pastimes everywhere, basically. And thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.